What's going on, everyone? So, a big point of emphasis at the end of season 2 and really at the beginning of season 3 is the shortage of food. They have lost all their crops. It is snowing. The soil is poisoned. They just got ambushed and lost pretty much all of their last remaining food source and their cattle and the goats and the cows and stuff after the monsters essentially went and slaughtered them all. You're in this place of monsters and chaos and constant fear of death. Half the town is afraid to sleep, and that's not healthy. And then you add in that none of these people can eat. You're starting to see panic and chaos really start to kick in. And people want to know, like, where is their next meal coming from? Obviously, you can ration, but when those rations fall and there's nothing left, now what do you do? And thus, you've seen this kind of be a driving narrative. And then also, one quick little side note is Fatima and her newfound taste for the rotten food. Definitely going to touch on that in a future video. But through some miracle, it appeared, Jim ends up stumbling across a field of food. Looked like cabbage or lettuce. And the thing is, that kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like, Jim and Kenny stumble across these huts, right, with the weird, like, statues. And yet they say, or Kenny says, we should take a look around and just make sure there's no surprises. And these two go different directions and start to basically check the perimeter, check the surroundings, and ensure that there's no surprises, that it's safe to spend the night there. Then they wake up, and all of a sudden, Jim finds all this food, enough for the entire town. And unless they just, like, overlooked and missed an entire field of food, it wasn't like it was just one, lettuce head or cabbage head, right? It was an entire field of it. It was enough to feed the entire town. So how do you just, like, overlook that? If they found, like, one, then I'd get it. I'd be like, okay, yeah, they clearly might have overlooked it. They weren't looking down, they were looking up. But again, how do you miss this entire field? And then you have it next to this water source, right? Like, it's just odd, right? It's not like Jim walked miles down the road or miles down the path in order to find this food. No, he was in a close enough range to where he was able to yell out for Kenny, who was inside the cabin, and he was able to come out and find the food source. It's like the food source just appeared overnight, right? It's like the food source wasn't there, and then they woke up and magically it was there. And this place constantly seems to be a place that will give and take, right? Let you feel a little nice. Let you feel like you're winning a little bit, right? Great example, Boyd. Boyd comes in. There's all these townspeople that have been living in, tunnels and hiding in bushes and, sleeping in trees to avoid the monsters. And then Boyd comes, he ventures out into the woods a little bit, and all of a sudden he finds, goats and animals. And then next thing you know, he ends up stumbling across, by accident, but still stumbled across the little stones that are able to protect people at night and keep them safe, right? And then you had this period where all was calm on the Eastern Front, right? All was nice and peaceful, and all was just good, right? Until this place decided, you know what, you guys had your fun. We let you feel a little nice. We let you feel like, hey, you were winning a little bit. Now let's start peeling back. And since then, it's just been absolute chaos. And then they lose their food, and then all of a sudden, this place just gives again? Well, I don't believe that, right? I think that there is another clear point in which this food seemed to have appeared. And that is Tian and her death. So Tian dies trying to save the food and trying to, save the cattle, and Boyd ends up having to witness it. And by the way, real quick little side note is, man, that episode 2, season 3, was an incredibly emotional roller coaster, right? Like, this show is all about Fromville, breaking down the people that live in Fromville emotionally, physically, mentally. This episode was about breaking us down emotionally and mentally. I mean, it was just such a just emotional type of episode, right? But I digress. Getting back on track, right? So again, Jim and Kenny go and discover this area of inhabitants, or what look to be former inhabitants, and miss the food source, but find it the following morning after Tian dies. So she dies, and then this food just magically appears, enough to save the entire town. And that's just coincidence? From is very, very specific about everything that it does. This show doesn't really have a lot of just coincidences. And we have a track record in history that shows that this is most likely the case. That Tian died, and in doing so, essentially gave food to the town. She was the sacrifice. And From has also kind of signaled that, right? Like, we had the scenes where, in the tunnels, where you have all the children, and then, Jade looks up, right, and sees the sigil and all the sacrifices, right? Like, things like that are like little clues to, hey, you make sacrifices, things happen, right? Kind of the old ways, old mythology. This show is very about folklore, mythology, right? Various religions, things like that. So it makes sense that Tian would die, and thus here's plentiful of food. She was the food sacrifice. She ended up dying trying to save the food in order to have the food now be replenished in the form of enough to keep the town alive. Right? Again, that's a lot of coincidence for it to just be a coincidence. At what point do you kind of follow the chain of events and realize, like, oh no, this is just what it is, right? Because again, you had the previous episode foreshadowing Tian's death. It was all about the food shortage. She's trying to save the food, ends up dying trying to save the food, and then the next morning, Kenny, her son, and Jim end up discovering a new food source. How is that not, again, how many coincidences have to happen before it's like, okay, that clearly is the case. That she was the sacrifice that led to the food being replenished. I don't know how you can see it any other way, right? Like, I dive into a lot of theories. I dive into a lot of, just fun conversational videos, right? Because that's what makes this show so great. Every scene gives you like 10 new types of theories and ideas and stuff, right? Like, I could make probably 10 videos a day and never run out of content with this show. And that's what's so great about it. Or personally, that's what I love so much about it. There's so many things that are kind of like, man, is this that, or is it this, or, is it really that straightforward, or is there more to it, right? Like, but this to me just seems like, it doesn't even seem like a theory. It doesn't even seem like an idea. It seems like, no, that's really the case. Again, follow the trail. The entire point was lack of food. Everyone's panicking. Tian has the last little rations in her basement. Everybody's trying to get to it. She's trying to stop everybody, right? Like, the entire episode, obviously there were other things that went on, but the entire episode and point of emphasis on Tian was foreshadowing her death and tying it into the food, and then she dies, and immediately they find a new food source. Based on what we've seen from this show, one, they don't have those many coincidences. Everything is very well thought out. Everything is very well written. Everything is very purposeful. And then on top of that, it's just, again, how many, even if it was one or two coincidences, how many can it get? And Jim and Kenny they just missed an entire field of food. It's not like they went to a different area entirely. They were close enough. I mean, Kenny walked out of that cabin and took like 10 steps, and then there was the food. And it just so happened to appear right where Kenny and Jim were. Right? Like, if they walked and they continued to hike deeper into the forest and stumbled across it, sure. Okay. Maybe it had no tie-in to Tian. But it was literally at their doorstep. And then you have all the excitement. Kenny comes up, guys, I found food. And he's all just pumped and excited. Like, he thinks he saved the day. Him and Jim are the town heroes now. And then to find out that his mother died. It clearly, in my opinion, again, I unless the writers or anybody come out and say, like, no, that really is the case, which I don't think that they will. So I got to at least do just and say that, hey, it's my opinion. It is a theory until fully proven or confirmed. But it's a very odd coincidence. I think it's closer to that's actually what happened than a theory. But just to be a true, informationist, I would like to say that, yeah, I believe I got to stick with it being a theory, but tell me it's not. Tell me it is a theory, right? Tell me it's not reality. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think, like, yeah, it is. That's exactly what happened? Do you think, no, like, do you have any justifications for things? I just think, again, it's a lot of coincidence. A lot of coincidence. But however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.